Hello and welcome to the THOMCAST. I'm Tom, president and dictator for life of 515comics.com. We're jumping right in this week because it's a little long, so bear with me. So last week on the THOMCAST, I was talking about how I go about making my comic Nextuus, and I got through the drawing and inking portions, which are done by pretty traditional means, i.e., I'm just drawn with a pencil and inking with a pen on a piece of white paper. So now this week we're talking about the digital end, and as you can see I got my Photoshop up here. I've already scanned in the inked image, and now I'm just going around and cleaning up all of my mistakes. just trying to make it look a little bit better anywhere that my pen kind of bled a little bit, or anywhere that maybe I went outside of the lines that I wanted, or just plain old screwed up. Also, you'll see here in a sec, I'm gonna do some black fills. There we go. I don't always ink in black fills because sometimes it takes a long time and it just sort of seems pointless when I could just color it in as soon as I scan it. Sometimes it's kind of fulfilling though, and I'll do it anyway, just fill in a bunch of black spaces. But yeah, occasionally I'll actually leave a little bit of that to be done on the computer. So this is the first step, this cleanup step, and I'm not going to do any color. I'm just dealing with black and white stuff here. I'm just trying to clean up the line work so that I can move on to step 2, which is actually converting the image in Illustrator to a vector image, which will make it pure black and white. As we zoom in here, you can see that there's actually, the scanner captures the paper grain and all these little fuzzy bits where the pen actually bled just a little bit. So actually doing the converting to vector image in Illustrator will make that all go away. It'll make it pure black and white, which makes it a lot easier to color. With all these little gradations in the paper grain, it can make the way that I color kind of a pain in the neck. So it's definitely a vast improvement. Oh, looks like I had to fix Randall's butt there. I have trouble drawing butts sometimes, and yeah, so I left that one for myself to fix in the future. Now you can see I'm just gonna pull that image that I saved in Photoshop over to Illustrator. Illustrator's gonna open up here. There's my image. I just go to Live Trace, Default, and let the program do the rest of the work. You can change it so that it changes the trace settings and it can make the lines a little smoother or something like that, but generally I find that I clean up enough in Photoshop right after I scan it that just doing the default setting makes it look the way I want it to look. Now you can see that I expanded it so that it basically makes it, instead of being one object, it creates separate objects for every separate line, and now I'm using my little panel marks to make perfectly square boxes. Hooray! There's my panels. Oh, they're so pretty. So yeah, that's what the little X's are for. I mentioned last week that sometimes my graph paper is not straight. And as you can see, I drew the second panel there is directly underneath the first panel and is the same size, but its little hash marks are a little bit off from perfectly beneath it. So, whatever. Now I'm going around and deleting my unnecessary marks. Those little dots on the sides of panels 1 and 2 are actually guides for lasers, which I will be putting in later, that you will see once it's finished being colored. So now I'm taking the traced image and pasting it over my original file in Photoshop. I just saved them as Photoshop files, the PSD files, when I'm coloring them. So there, I've brought it in, I've converted it back to pixels from a vector image, so now I can start coloring it, which is pretty awesome. So let's get rid of that. I don't need that crap. Okay, now my coloring process is really nothing special, so let me show you my horrible secret. I'm gonna open up the last comic that I did. Oh, look, there's some colors in there that I'm going to need in today's comic. So we'll just steal that color there and just put it wherever it needs to go with the good old fill tool. I've told people before, when I color, I'm just using the fill tool. There's really nothing more to it than that. And yeah, um, so to keep consistent, I will use previous comics as a reference. And oh yeah, here's how I do eyes. This is my one kind of cool thing, is that I have to select faces and lasso out the eye area to leave it white. So then fill again, and yeah, there you go. That's how I leave my eyes white. I think that's like my only trick when it comes to coloring my characters, is that I have to be a little creative with how I leave the eye whites in there, since it's one of the only things that's not, closed. And that's something that I've learned just with, the way that I do this. It kind of requires me, when I'm inking, it requires me to pay close attention to make sure that the objects are going to be closed that need to be colored, because it makes this style of coloring so much easier if I don't have to keep going in and completing things with brushes and things like that. I do a little bit of brush work when it comes to coloring the comic in Photoshop, but if I can avoid it, I will, because no, I don't like doing it. So anyway, that's a little crash course on how I do coloring. I'm not going to show you how I do the whole thing, because it's really nothing more than that. Um, Now I'm showing you how I just copy and paste from the script. So that's the script down there in the bottom right corner for this chapter. You can see the dialogue for this page. I just bring it on and place it wherever it's going to look best. That's really about it. Um, yeah, let's see here. What else can I say about my text placement? Nothing really. I got nothing. It's just text placement. Isn't that exciting? I try not to cover up anything important, and actually my bubbles, I'll show you how I do the bubbles too. I make them just a little transparent, so even if I do cover up something, even if it's not important, I still like to see it a little bit behind the bubbles. So now I've got all of my dialogue up there. Now I'm adding in some action sounds. We've got this giant kill robot here shooting at Randall and Dugan in this page, and yeah, his laser guns say pack. They go pack, pack, pack. Isn't that awesome? That's pretty cool. So anyway, as you can see, I use a different font for the action sounds most of the time. Unless it's something small or insignificant, like a click sound, I might use with the same font as a dialogue. But a couple people had called me out and commented on past pages, saying that a lot of times my action words did not look very actiony and didn't really evoke the excitement that they needed to. And so I picked this font. I think it's called Bada Boom, and yeah, I really like it. It works really well for action noises. And actually, this chapter 14, I changed my dialogue font, my standard font, from Comic Sans. I don't really have a problem with Comic Sans, but a lot of people do, and it was something that, I always thought, well, that's their problem, not mine. But I changed it to something else, kind of to satisfy anybody who's really bothered by Comic Sans. And also, looking at it now, I actually really like it. The font I use now is just called Comica. I think it's Comica Text or something like that. It is free online. I was reported as a Comic Sans criminal, so I had to change my ways, and that's what I use now. And I think it works very well. I don't think I'm going to go back and change old pages, but it's nice to have started that change at the start of a chapter, so that it's not too jarring or anything. I don't think it looks too much different from Comic Sans that it's going to be that noticeable, unless unless you really like fonts. Now I'm doing the the bubbles, the speech bubbles. As you can see, Timothy is talking to Randall on the phone there, and to denote someone talking from the other end of an electronic device, I always do that little lightning bolt thing there. What I'm doing is I've just made another layer, and I'm just using the rectangular selection tool and the angular lasso tool again to to cover up the text, and yeah, that's it. You know, just make sure that the bubble layer is below all the text layers, and you're good. Now also you can see that all of my text is actually sort of a dark gray right now. And I do that just so that if some of it goes over into the black background, I can actually see where the text is when I'm making these bubbles, so that I don't have to, you know, go searching for, you know, hope that I'm kind of close. But I'll change it to black here as soon as I'm done. Oh, and since Randall's screaming here, oh yeah, get that pointing right at his armpit. Yeah, perfect. Since Randall's screaming here, whenever someone's yelling really loudly or exclaiming, I like to put a little flash up by the text box there. So anyway, there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and change all of the font colors to black, and then this page will be pretty much done. Yeah, there you go. Now it's starting to pop a little bit. It looks a little more readable, I think. So yeah, that's pretty much the process I do, and there's the completed product there, the page for yesterday. I hope you enjoyed this little demo, this little example of how I do stuff, and as always, thanks for watching.